Greetings, and welcome to Amplified, where we amplify the politics and the policies that are impacting Black and brown communities. I'm Aisha Mills. Now, Democrats face a number of challenges in the upcoming November election, those that could impact the balance of power in Washington. One of those challenges is the high number of Dems who are ready to move on from Capitol Hill. BNC correspondent Anser Hassan looks at the upcoming congressional exodus.
On the eve of the anniversary of the January 6th riots at the Capitol, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says,
"We won that night. Democracy won that night."
But can Pelosi and the Democrats have substantial wins this year? And can they still deliver on their political promises of 2020?
It certainly is a warning sign for Democrats. You tend to get more retirements when members expect it to be a hard election year for their party.
For the past few months, Pelosi's office has been busy sending out statements on the retirement of key Democrats, such as Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, co-chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, Peter DeFazio, chair of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, and Congressman Bobby Rush, member of the powerful House Energy and Commerce Committee.
Having these retirements, it's a higher number than Democrats have had in recent years. And I think it just speaks to the kind of nervous mood in the party.
Eric Schickler is co-director of the Institute of Governmental Studies at UC Berkeley, a research unit that focuses on the study of U.S. politics. To date, 25 congressional Democrats are retiring or seeking other office. That compared to just 11 Republicans, although Schickler is quick to point out that as a whole, there's more turnover on the Republican side. Still, he adds, anytime a party loses a number of senior committee leaders, it's kind of a brain drain on that party. Political science professor Donna Crane says many of those retiring have been in office for decades, so it makes sense that their political careers would eventually come to an end.
Again, we are looking at a midterm election, and the party in power tends to lose seats in the midterms. And if some of these veteran Democrats are looking to leave, it's possibly because they don't expect they will be a chairman after 2022. So that actually is fairly logical to my mind.
Crane says retirement could open the door to a more diverse field of candidates, ones who are more representative of the nation's changing demographics. But she adds it's important to consider the current political environment to better understand the impact the wave of retirements may have. Voter rights legislation and redistricting are both underway. Both could impact who votes. Then there's the global pandemic, which has become partisan in many states and having a huge drag on President Biden's popularity.
And Democrats' fate will rest in part on Biden's numbers.
Many political activists say there will be a sense of urgency over the next 4 to 5 months as Democrats see it as their last best opportunity to get their agenda passed, such as Biden's Build Back Better legislation.
I'm really concerned how it will impact immigrant issues along with other economic justice issues.
Sarah Souza is a California state delegate. Like many, she says communities of color expect Democrats to deliver on major policy reforms promised in 2020. But she adds, given the retirements and the current partisan climate, Democrats also need to be focused on courting voters for the 2022 midterms.
It's, again, a call for a more proactive action of the party and really engaging voters in the upcoming elections.
Some political analysts say communities of color are credited for helping Democrats take the White House and Congress in 2020. If Democrats lose both houses and fail to deliver, it could create political space for Republicans.
To the extent that they're seen as falling short on that, that again opens the door for Republicans to make increased gains. We did see some gains among Latinos in 2020 by Republicans, and certainly opens the door to continuation of that.
I'm Anser Hassan for Amplified.
Of course, all of this movement off and on Capitol Hill is making Democrats really nervous, and they should be nervous. But congressional retirements are inevitable, and we'll likely see more of them as more leaders are stepping down, given that the number of members, by the way, over 70 years old, that still dominate the legislature is high. So people are ultimately going to resign. But here's the thing. the vast majority of those who will be retiring are actually vacating solidly Democratic seats. So their departures are going to have little impact on the actual balance of power in Congress. There are other key races to watch. Of course, there's still a handful of races that Joe Biden won. They're going to ultimately be called red to blue, that are currently held by Republicans. So you have those seats that Republicans are sitting in that Joe Biden won, that Democrats maybe can pick up. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee also has a group called the frontline races. Those are sitting members who represent swing districts and often face tough re-elections against Republicans. Those are the races to pay attention to, because those are the ones where Democrats could easily get picked off and then ultimately lose the majority. Now, the DCCC recently updated its list of frontliners, and right now they've prioritized around 30 races that they need to protect in order to ensure that Democrats actually maintain control of the House. Demographically, though, the list of candidates looks pretty diverse. There are 4 black members on that frontline list, a few LGBT members, and several women as well. But when you drill down, the districts that they represent are by and large majority white and relatively moderate, which begs the question, do black voters really matter in the midterms? Well, the answer is, of course, black voters matter. Your vote counts all the time, people. So don't forget to vote in November. Y'all thought that that was actually a trick question, didn't you? No, your vote matters, of course. But how critical is the black vote to the balance of power in Congress? Well, that conversation is actually far more complicated. In the coming months, we're going to dig in on this question and profile key races of this cycle and the power of black voters in those districts. We're also going to look at the ground game of both parties to see if they are actually putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to investing in black voter engagement and turnout. The 2022 elections are critical. The future of civil rights absolutely hangs in the balance with this election. Now, I know that Democrats haven't exactly delivered much of what they promised in the last year, so it's really easy to kind of discount them and question why we even elected them in the first place. But I want everybody to remember that the alternative was worse. We're going to amplify all of it on this show, so stay tuned because we're going to get into all the nitty-gritty on it.